What's good? I'm Kinnell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Just letting you know with this little bit at the start that we now have a Patreon. Sub up to that, and you can get all these episodes early and ad-free, so you won't even see this bit at the start. You get them a few days before the main episodes drop out. We've got some great guests coming up. We've got some studio episodes. We've got some Zoom episodes with some fantastic rappers talking about the films they love and the films that influenced them. We got a lot going on there. Plus, you get some bonus content like film reviews, all that kind of thing. I don't need to explain this to you. You know what a Patreon is. But yeah, it's patreon.com/Kinnell Sinister Cinema. So check that out. Peace. Yes, people. What's good? I'm Kinnell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Kinnell Sinister Cinema is brought to you by Forgotten Sons Apparel. Check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Forgotten Sons Apparel is a York-based streetwear brand drawing inspiration from alternative culture, tattoos, film, classic TV and cartoons from our childhood. In our own words, if you like our stuff half as much as we do, then we like it twice as much as you. I'm a big fan of this brand and I love the guys who make it. They've supported me for years, way before I was podcasting. They supported me in my battle rap career. You might have seen me rocking some of their garms on Don't Flop and other leagues. I love Forgotten Sons Apparel and I'm urging you all to check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Right, now on with the show. Oh my days, we are back with another one. Yes, it is once again the KSC podcast. I am Kinnell himself. Mr. Always had a buzz of every rhyme I wrote and everybody want to know me like the Wi-Fi code. Yeah, so we're back at it. It is September, as I believe. So, fucking, I've had some computer issues these recently. Fucking, like, I've literally had to turn into one of these guys who, like, fixes his own PC in the last week, which is why we didn't have much promo for the absolutely banging episode that I put out with Gas Buff and Ariel from Ghouls Magazine talking about the Saw franchise. That was out last week. If you missed that one, definitely check it out. Obviously, we've got a new Saw film out tomorrow. I got all my Saw shit on display here, man. I'm fucking ready for it. Fucking like, I have got my tickets booked for Friday and all this week on twitch.tv/Kinnellyo. I've been playing Saw, the video game, the original Xbox 360 motherfucker. I bought an Xbox 360 just to play it. I'm having a great time with it. They've been some sick streams. Fucking's been a few people checking in. Not saying I'm shit at it, but put it this way, you're gonna see how the traps work. But yeah. Fucking today I figured I'd just have a bit of a catch up with old homie one today. So I'm bringing in a man who has a book to promote, but we might just be chatting a bit of shit off base. It is none other than Tom Russell.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really shit at promoting my books, man. Like, this is part of the reason I wanted to come on here as well, is like an attempt to kind of push it a bit to the right kind of people, you know. But yeah, you know, I totally forgot they did a Saw game back in the day. I totally forgot. I'm hyped for Saw 10 though on Friday.
Like, you got tickets booked, man.
I haven't got tickets booked, but that's because I live in Ipswich. I don't need to. It's a small town. I can just rock up. There's never any risk of anything being booked.
Yeah, man. Fucking. Oh, I'm so excited for it. Like, I fucking like. I got so excited. I booked myself a ticket for it. Then I realised I'm supposed to be asking someone to go with me. So I asked them, and then I booked two more tickets to go when they actually were available to go. So yeah. But I'm there on Friday night regardless.
I'm looking forward to see. I mean, I hope it's not the last one, man. Because like, have you read much about like the plot or what it's actually going to be compared to the old ones?
Yeah, it is set between Saw 1 and 2.
That's exactly it, man. And I've read an interview, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head because I read a lot of these things for for reasons, for work reasons. But it's kind of almost going to be reframing John Kramer as like not really a villain at all in this one. Because I mean, this is what I love the Saw movies, man. Because he's a bit like Thanos. He's one of those guys that it's like, what you do is bad, but on the other hand, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. In the middle of the franchise, it did feel like it was getting a bit stupid at points because there was some. It was like, oh yeah, you know, you didn't say bless you when I sneezed, and so you wake up and there's a spike up your nose, like, you know.
Yeah, they've lost it by Jigsaw. You did a shit MOT on a flipping scrambler bike.
You know, you looked at me funny in the queue earlier today, so you know, there's needles aimed at your eyes. You won't look at anyone again. But this one, man, like, I love the idea that it's actually about him. Like, they actually sound like scumbags. Like, they're ripping people off for cancer treatment. You know what I mean? Whatever these guys get coming to them, you're like, yeah, you deserve whatever it is. And some of the traps look messed up, man. I forget. Can I swear? Is this will I get?
Yeah, we swearing.
They're fucked. Have you seen some of them, the new ones?
I've been covering my eyes in the trailer. I want to see it all there. I want to be totally hyped.
Cool.
I'm on the first for this film, by the way. Like, so fucking, you know, we're either getting married or I'm never seeing her again.
I tell you what, that's a risky one though to take as like a test in that scenario.
It's a first date out in public, man. It's not like the first time I've like met her. Like,
oh, okay, that's all right then, because that was like the first time I was like, yo, I'm thinking we're gonna have a date, and I think what we should see is the torture movie. Like,
yeah, it's not these days, is it? Like, but yeah, man, fucking very hyped for it, man. Are you a big fan of the franchise?
Oh yeah. Saw was like, I mean, I'm 33, and I was a little bit too young to watch it at the cinema when it came out, but I watched it on VHS, which is obviously going back a ways now. I think VHS or one of the first DVDs, irrelevant. But yeah, so I've been sort of following it since then. And you know how those first franchises, like when every teenager, I think, goes through a phase of horror movies because you can watch them for the first time. It's like, yeah, I'm old enough to watch the scary movies. And some people watch them and are like, this isn't for me. Some people watch them and just enjoy them. And then there's obviously people like you and me that are like, this is my jam. All this gory grisly shit, I'm into it. Just give me more, give me more. But those first franchises you discover from like your era, I think, are the ones that like always will stay with you. And Saw is very, very much one of those for me, man. Like, I mean, even the rubbish ones, like The Ring sequels have been terrible, man. They've been absolutely terrible. But if they make another one, I'll watch it because The Ring was one of the first movies I watched. The same with The Grudge. Yeah. If they did another Sarah Michelle Gellar Grudge movie, I'd be bang. Like, yeah, take my money, because one of the first horror movies I saw at the cinema, I think, was the first one. And Saw, like, literally the second I was 18 and a Saw movie came out, I was like, yeah, this is my first Saw movie, like, at the cinema. I forget which one it was, actually, man. I don't think it was one of the good ones, though. I remember that much.
Yeah, man. Fucking, I know exactly what you mean about when you first sort of have those ones that are around at the time. Like I was in my 20s when flipping Saw was hitting, so it's been with me, like, it's been with me. But do you know what? We're nearly fucking 10 minutes in. We just said, oh, we're so terrible at promoting things. We have the title of the book.
Yeah, that's a good point. My book is 200% Unfiltered Nightmare Fuel, which is a bold title. I will say that. You know, but the first one, it's a sequel. It's a short story collection. And I mean, a lot of the stories in there are pretty messed up, like on a kind of Saw level. I mean, it's a lot more supernatural. So if you think like kind of Lovecraftian vibes, that definitely with a Saw kind of level of gore and just general pain being inflicted on people, then it will be right up your alley, man. Because obviously, like, Saw's been a big inspiration for me. So obviously, that kind of thing is gonna, you know, it comes through in my work, even though it's not specifically about a trap man who makes traps for people. There is one story actually that I remember specifically thinking of Saw when I made it, about this crazy artist guy who basically he makes people into like living art. So like there's like a tapestry of like people that have all been like stretched out, like that thing in Doctor Who.
A bit like a House of Wax thing going on as well.
Yeah,
there.
kind of, man. Did you ever watch Doctor Who back in the day?
Like way back in the day, like flipping, I was watching like 70s ones in the 80s.
Okay, well, in the Christopher Eccleston series, they go into like the far future when Earth's about to die, and they meet this character who's like the last human. And I only mention it in case anyone wants to Google it. But to keep herself genetically pure, she's basically become like a stretched out bit of skin with a face on it in like a frame, and she gets wheeled around and moisturized and stuff. And it's all very fun, you know, because it's Doctor Who. But like that, I kind of ran with like a similar idea in my head, but basically like a tapestry of just like flattened out people all stitched together, their nervous systems all linked and stuff like that. But then, like,
they're still alive in this
yeah,
process.
yeah, they're alive and they start talking like the narrator. And I don't want to spoiler it, but like the story, basically, the setup of it is a guy, he goes to get some cash in hand work. You know what I mean? Because he's got addictions to feed. Let's put it that way. So it's like, you know, they're offering cash in hand. So I knew it was I knew it was an art project. I went down to a shady warehouse. He doesn't think much of it because, you know, he's in the kind of lifestyle where he spends a lot of time in shady warehouses on industrial estates. You know what I mean? And so he gets knocked out and he wakes up and he sees his legs in the bin and stuff like that. And he's like, well, this is weird. I can't move my head. And he basically gets taken through this fucked up art gallery of like people that have been turned into things and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to spoil what it's revealed that he then is at the end as the final exhibit, but that was very much, as I was writing it, Saw inspired. But if the goal with these weird, elaborate devices wasn't to like trap people or judge them, it was just to turn them into, you know, what the most messed up thing I could think of at the time was. You know, I read a lot of interviews with some authors about it. They try and get quite deep and mystical with their creative process. And they're like, oh, yes, you know, and I'm exploring this and I'm exploring this. A lot of the time, the creative process with my stories, once I've got the theme, is what is the most fucked up thing I can possibly think of in this one specific instance. Much like the guys who made a lot of the Saw movies, to be honest, I imagine.
Yeah, I think like that's interesting because like your guy's basically an artist, whereas like Jigsaw's essentially a tech nerd.
He's an engineer, isn't he? He's an engineer of karma.
This is it. Like, from what we know about this new one is like it's some people ripping people off for fake cancer treatment, and they rip all his money off. I mean, we know he survives to the next film. I dare say he also gets money back.
Yeah. And then some, I reckon, man. Looking at it. Like, I mean, this is what makes it like quite an interesting one though, because they've obviously, with his backstory, I feel like over the course of the franchise, they kind of veered from it at points. And I mean, obviously, what doesn't help is that there were like 5 Saw movies that were supposed to be the last one. Like, and then they just kept going. So I really like this one's kind of going back to the original idea, like the core of him as a character. Because I mean, this is the thing with Saw. As much as I love
like so many other characters that had their own stories going on, like in the later ones.
Yeah. Like the police guy, I forget his name now. Yeah. And obviously his other assistant, again, whose name eludes me. I'm very tired. I do apologize.
Yeah, that's Amanda.
Amanda, that's the one. See, I wanted to say Anna, but I know it's not Anna, and I know that's not her name because I've been thinking of Anna from Freaky Friday 2 for a work thing. That's why. But yeah, Amanda, like obviously her kind of story's been explored a lot more, but his being explored without all the extra baggage of everything that's happened since is going to be great. I mean, what I'd love them to do, because obviously he can't go on doing them indefinitely, but I'd love them to do kind of more with his character, because even though he got like attacked, you know, even though the bad things happened to him and so he decided to hurt people, that's still a pretty big leap to go to. Like, you know, he must have had practice making them traps, or like, you know, because, you know, not that I'd want to, but I couldn't on a whim be like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to punish everyone who's ever wronged me, and I'm going to do it with this big elaborate set of traps like that fucking Mousetrap game, and it's going to go off without a hitch. He must have had some kind of like, you know, maybe he was gonna be a serial killer, but his wife showed him the good path or something like that. And that, you know, just an exploration of him.
It's one of them, like fucking, you know, the fucking. That's not your first attempt, is it? Like that.
No, you've thought about this for a while, because them traps are like, even in the first one, they're elaborate. I mean, in the first movie they were a little bit more grounded.
Yeah.
But you know, I've seen that YouTube channel where the guy invents things, and I've watched scrap heap challenges stuff, and I know that things like that pendulum trap that gradually goes down and down, you are not pulling that off without significant understanding of like engineering and physics and stuff like that. So who was the Saw guy before Saw? Who was John Kramer before he became, you know, there must be more story there. I'd love them to kind of delve into that a little bit more.
Yeah, he didn't even have YouTube.
No, I know. Like, where did he get the information? Go to a library. Like, do you have a book on elaborate traps, please? Oh dear. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy that the franchise is going on. I know it's one that people that aren't fans of it, I think it's kind of got this perception of being a bit trashy, which, I mean, certain ones you can kind of see where people are coming from, but when it's good, when it's at its best, I think it's brilliant, man. And so I think this one does look like it's going to be another one that's like good in the franchise, rather than another one that's a bit like.
I'll always enjoy a Saw film, even a bad one. Like, I've just like rewatched the whole franchise, and there isn't one that I don't enjoy. We just had a little edit there while we sorted out some technicals. So hopefully that nasty little echo will go away. You only need to hear me once. We know what it is. But yeah, fucking lots of train of thought in the process. I will say, we were having a bit of a conversation off mic just before we started about the new Layers of Fear. You've been having a go on that, haven't you?
Yeah. On the PS5, man. I mean, I don't know how new it is, but it's new to me, and that's the important thing. Oh, is it? Oh, fantastic. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm one of those people. I wait for a lot of stuff to come out on offer. Like, there's only a few games that I'll get on release. I mean, that's partly because I've got kids, though. You know what I mean? Were I a younger man, that might be a bit different. But yeah, I played the original on whatever the first console it came out on, thought it was all right. But the new one, man, with the PS5 graphics, other than the length being a bit of a thing, because they've smashed, as I was saying before we got set up, they've smashed together Layers of Fear 1, Layers of Fear 2, and they've got some new filler content in the middle. It's a definite improvement, and yeah, I actually really enjoyed it, man. Like, it's as dragged at points, but the new, like, I mean, I don't know the technical terms for a lot of this stuff, but like the new lighting things that they can do with the PS5, you kind of felt like, okay, this is what they were going for the first time round, but the technology wasn't quite there yet. I played it without the monsters on as well. So, because I was just there for the story, I was like, I don't fancy running away from stuff. I've just played a lot of Elden Ring. It was very, very stressful. I want to just do a walking simulator. But this is where the length became a bit of a problem for me.
It's a shift, isn't it?
And it got to a point as well where you could kind of, and I mean, there's multiple endings from what I'm led to understand, but you could kind of see where it was going about a quarter to a third of the way in. And so that was what I thought, okay, this should be the halfway point. And it's like, oh, okay, it's still going, and it's still going, and it's still going. And I think this is something with horror games that definitely, with the ones that are like walking simulators, needs to be looked at by more devs, is length. Because some of them I do feel...
I think they've gone out their way to put a load of like extra stuff in it. Because I was streaming it while I was playing it, and there was a guy who'd finished it who was watching, and I'd like come across a load of stuff that he didn't see. I stumbled on this mad bit where I was in the Overlook Hotel. I saw Danny's trike and all that. I've edited out just that bit into a little 60-second short on the YouTube channel if you want to see the Shining references and that. But But yeah. Layers of Fear, like I was streaming that recently, and fucking that's sort of like why I sort of got back in touch with you in a kind of like indirect kind of way. I've always been playing these like little short J horror games that are like similar kinds of things. Like it's a walking simulator effect. Well, like it's like a job simulator. Most of them. You either like work in a coffee shop, or you're like working at a regular shop, or you're fucking delivering stuff. And for the first bit of it, you're just doing the job. And then it gets a bit creepy. And then fucking all of these little chillers art games, they're like fucking hour and a half, 2 hours long. And they get me every time.
But that's what makes them so good, man. I mean, this is why I like, I write and I read short stories when it comes to horror, man. I like my horror to be in short little bursts, something shocking that I'll then be thinking about for ages and ages and ages. And it's the same with games, man. I can't, again, my memory is terrible. My brain's been trained to think with Google on another screen, looking up stuff. But, all of these like short little games I've played stick with me a lot more than the, really, really big, in-depth ones that just go on and on and on and on and on. So like Resident Evil, for example, right? I mean, I know it's not the scariest thing in the world, but like 6 was one of the longest ones. There was just so much going on, like 5 or 6 different campaigns. Barely remember it. Resident Evil, like the first one, so comparatively short, but people remember it like much more, just sticks in the mind because it's like a nice little self-contained thing. Like my favorite Stephen King book is one of his shorter ones. It's The Long Walk.
He's a fucking long book guy, is Stephen.
But have you read any of his short work, like short stories and stuff?
Like years ago, not recently.
I think he's better at short stories, to be honest, man. I wish he'd write more. Like there's this one he wrote in a collection. It's just about these kids that go to a warehouse or are playing near a warehouse or a car park or something. And then one of them touches the car and the car just like sticks to him like rubber, this random car. And he's like, what the hell? And the car just absorbs him and eats him. And then these people that saw run over to help and then they get absorbed and eaten. And it's just this little boy, like I ran back to my dad and no one believed me and blah, blah, blah. And I was traumatized. And I was just saying like, what the fuck? But that has stuck in my mind, whereas a lot of the novels that I've read of him have kind of merged into one amalgamous Stephen King dark tower-shaped blob in my mind, But yeah, like I wish more when it comes to games. I think a lot of developers, like the guys that made Layer of Fear, if they were like, you know what, let's aim for like a shorter experience, like literally just a couple of hours, almost like you're watching a movie, but then crank out more of them. I think that could be like, a good direction to go in, basically, rather than trying to do like a Layers of Fear. Yeah, people are going to want to sit here and play this for days and days and days on end, because I don't want to play it for days and days and days on end.
This is it. I think it's the funding in it. If they're going to get the funding to get these like fucking super big teams together, then they need to charge a lot for it. So they've fucking like to justify the cost, they've got to put all this extra shit in. And you're moving away from horror, really, aren't you? Like,
yeah, there is that element to it as well. But I mean, this is the problem I think with horror as a genre in any medium. The more time you spend with, because it's the unknown that makes things scary, right?
Yeah.
So the more time you spend with something, like the less horror it becomes. So like using Alien as an example, like the first Alien movie, pure horror, shit was terrifying. Second Alien movie, still horror, but it's definitely got action elements. And then you fast forward to like Alien versus Predator, and you can't really, I couldn't really call it horror anymore. It's cool, I like it. Like I'm not knocking it at all, but we're fully into science fiction territory now. This is sci-fi with some jump scares, like Nightmare on Elm Street as well. Like the more time we spent with Freddy Krueger, the less scary he got.
Well, I got a theory on that one. I fucking like. I think the last one where it was like properly scary was like Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and that was like the start of his one-liners.
Yeah,
and like it was also on the soundtrack. there was Dream Warriors by Dokken, who were a heavy metal band in the 80s. And he appeared in the video as Freddy Krueger. And according to reports, he was just doing fucking bare beak. Like he was properly partying with the band, like fucking serving up big bumps off the claws, like never sleep again. And doing
that is like the most 80s shit you could ever in it. Like,
yeah, and I think that I think it was like fucking. He was still scary in the film, and because they did that afterwards, that was what changed Freddy. He just did so much beak, and just got so. Oh, people love these lines. People love it when I say funny things. I'm going to say more things. I'm never going to shut up. I think that's the turning point. I think that's it. I think like fucking Nightmare on Elm Street 4 onwards, we got Cocaine Freddy.
Cocaine Freddy Hoover. Yeah, no, I think you're right, man. I think that's why the 2010 remake bombed as well, because they were like, we're going to make Freddy scary again. Like, you know, we're going to make him scary. And it's like, you can't go back now. Not with Freddy Krueger. You can't go back. I'm going to be honest. I'm amazed Scream managed to survive after a scary movie and the whole "what's that" thing in the 90s. Like, I know that's going back away now, but I think it's great that Scream's still going on, because that could have very easily just made it like not scary for people at all. Because Scary Movie parodied it so well.
Yeah, like, they murdered it, like. But what should we call it? Like, I think like they fucking like, because it was getting stupid by Scream 3, and then they took a long time off. Then they came back, and it was a different era of horror when people had been around the Saws and the Hostels.
I think what helps with the new Screams as well, man, is that they acknowledge that, because you've got the whole thing as well of like the in-universe movie of all of it. They can kind of make a bit of meta commentary that kind of help placate it. I think that's why the new Screams did better than the new Halloween stuff. Because the new Halloween stuff did all right, but ultimately people still remember Halloween H2O. You know, it's still like, for a lot of people, just going to be, oh, okay, it's a new Halloween movie. But I think the Scream stuff managed to like circumvent that, and by like nipping it in the bud and being like, we're aware this is a movie and you've seen it before and you know where you are, it then allowed you to kind of sink into it and actually get to know the new characters and stuff like that and relax into it. Like,
whereas I think like the new Halloween films, like the first one particularly, it's like, we're bringing back Jamie Lee Curtis, and this one's also going to involve a mental house escape, and we're going here and we're doing all these things. And like I think like if Halloween Ends, they tried to pivot and thought, shit, fucking like doing new things is a good thing, so they tried to do loads of new things when they hadn't been going that way.
I mean, it is difficult rebooting a franchise and revitalizing it, because on the one hand, you've got to keep like fans of the old stuff happy, but on the other hand, you've also got to make it like fresh and not just promote it and saying, oh, it's a fresh take. Like, it actually has to kind of be fresh and feel fresh. Like, this is why Prey worked so well as like a rebooting, because it felt fresh. Like, if you'd never seen a Predator movie, it wouldn't matter one bit. You could have no concept of Predator, watch Prey and be like, this is sick, I love it. Like, whereas, you know, and again, using the Halloween movies as an example, and I'm not knocking them, it always kind of felt like it's straddling the fence between wanting to do its own thing and wanting to keep fans guessing of when the next little nugget or Easter egg was gonna like crop up, you know, like when the next little nod was gonna be. Like the new the rebooted Texas Chainsaw Massacre, actually, I think that kind of had similar issues. The one on, I don't know if you saw that, the one on Netflix, I think it's 2020.
Yeah, because they tried to bring back Sally Hardiker and that.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I think the thing to do is just say, fuck it, like, because, like, fucking I thought the most recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, as a straight up gnarly slasher, was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't think that isn't the fan service I need. I don't need Sally Hardiker back. I need fucking let's take big chainsaw.
Yeah, and I mean this is how I know that one kind of failed, because you know, everyone's got like blind spots within their genre, right? And Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a big one of mine. I was very late to the party watching it. I didn't watch it until like my mid-20s. And even then, I watched it, how to say, in an internet-friendly way. I wasn't in the most sober state when I watched it. Like, so I don't really remember it like too well. But as much as I know little bits of trivia about the movie and the production process and everything like that, when I was watching the 2020 remake of it, I was really enjoying it. Like you said, really fun little slasher. Like the bit on the bus when they're all with their phones and he's just stood there with the chainsaw and they're like, oh, we're going to call the police on you. And he just like, and there's so much blood that it's like pooling up. I was absolutely in stitches, man. I was like, this is brilliant. Like, what a brilliant use of corn syrup. Happy days. And then it got to the bit where they shoehorned in her from the first movie. And I had to wait a few minutes and be like, oh, she's supposed to be someone from like the first one. And then I twigged after a while. And obviously the film then helped you cotton on. But yeah, could have done without that diversion. Like it didn't need it, you know, especially since that, you know, and this is one thing that does annoy me about the current climate of entertainment in general and social media. This is why I never class myself as a fan of anything. I like to say I'm an enjoyer of something, because like the diehard fans of stuff like Texas Chainsaw Massacre are never going to be happy with a reboot, because diehard fans, you know, they never are, like, at least not at first.
But that's it. Like, I think like Texas Chainsaw Massacre particularly, fucking, it's things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Hellraiser, I think they're these ones where like they fucking, like, the first film is this like fucking iconic, legendary, like fucking you can't talk about horror without it. And then you have to fucking and then it goes some complete nonsense. And like ultimately, like most fans of Hellraiser fucking are checked out by Hellraiser 3. But it's when you try and go like, you've got to accept like fucking you're not in that. That's why Friday the 13th was like one of the most solid franchises, because that was nonsense from the offset.
Yeah, that started out not giving a fuck and just continued and stayed true. So there is a man in a hockey mask with a machete. He is going to stab people. Like that is that's it. That's the thing. Like
the body count will be in the 20s.
I started that franchise so weird, man. And this is again an era like showing when you're growing up and how it influences things. The first one I ever saw of that was fucking Jason X, like the first one. And so I was obviously so lost. I was like, what the hell is going on? Who is this guy? Why is he frozen? You know, and then I watched the others afterwards and I was like, oh, okay. It turns out it didn't matter. I didn't need to know. Like, he was just a scary guy in a mask. Like, and that was all I needed. And more franchises should remember that, I think, and stick to that. Like, just this is what makes it good.
Yeah,
it's the premise.
I think what's going to be like really stinking things out this this Halloween season is The Exorcist Believer.
Yeah, that I think is going to be, because I don't think they'd be optioning it unless they had real faith in it. Because obviously that's one of those movies. You know, there's a reason that there's not been like infinite Exorcist sequels, because people just, I think it's people respect it. You know what I mean? It's one of those. Yeah. Like, so the fact that it's coming,
it's The Exorcist and The Exorcist 3 that people fuck with. I love The Exorcist 3. Exorcist 2 gone complete fucking nonsense. Like,
this is it.
They tried a thing with the prequel, and then all that. But the thing is, like, Exorcist Believer is it's part of a trilogy. It's David Gordon Green again.
Yeah.
Who did the Halloween films. And it's like, oh, we're bringing Ellen Burstyn back. I don't give a fuck about Ellen Burstyn. She's not fucking some like fucking horror icon. It's not like it's not like no one else can play Candyman or no one else can play Freddy Krueger. I don't give a fucking shit.
It's like, what we remember The Exorcist for is the spinny round of the head, the stuff with the crucifix that we can't talk about on YouTube, like the little girl swearing, the spider walk, the peeing scene. The actual cast, though, they did a good job at selling those scenes. But like, yeah, I agree. It's not one of those movies that I specifically remember. Yeah, it had that person in it, and it's the imagery. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Exorcist Believer, if the trailer hasn't absolutely fibbed, like which some do these days, let's be real. Like there's been so many movies that are victims of really slick marketing departments polishing turds. Yeah. But if it delivers, it looks like it will definitely, have that same level of shock factor. Like not shock factor. What am I trying to say? Like memorable kind of scenes and moments in it and stuff. The one that always sticks with me from the original Exorcist, man, though, and I think it's one of the most underrated moments, is it's when the mum or the priest or something checks on the girl, and it must be the mum because I think it's quite early on, and she shuts the door, and you can see the demon in the shadow behind the door staring down, and that's the one that freaked me the first time I saw that movie, because obviously it had already been out ages when I was born. By the time I got around to watching it, I'd seen it parodied a bunch of times. I'd seen clips of like the head spinning scene, so I knew what was coming there. But that moment, man, that shit me up. Like little things hiding in the shadows.
That's what you want to do. Like, I don't want to see like fucking Ellen Burstyn's like, oh, I've been here before. It's not going to be fucking. It's not like fucking Ash walking into an Evil Dead film, is it? Like. Fucking like I'm not going to have a reaction to fucking Ellen Burstyn, but if you give me a really good Pazuzu shot, I'll be with it. That was the thing. Like, my initial reaction to like the trailer is like, if they'd have just done an Exorcist ripoff, because there's been so many Exorcist ripoffs, it set a template for what a possession movie is, and like you put one of them in the cinema, I will fucking watch it and I'll have a great time. I fucking know it is. It's an Exorcist ripoff, but the problem is you're calling it The Exorcist. And we're bringing back Ellen Burstyn, and you are not going to get the same people that watch The Exorcist because it won Oscars. You're getting the people who go and watch whatever the new horror film is out on Friday. So
Yeah, this is just it, man.
You don't even need the Exorcist IP for that.
This is just it. Like as a genre person, man. Like horror consumers as a group, we're actually so easygoing. Like it's like just put it up there. We'll go watch it, and even if it's like the tackiest, cheesiest looking thing, as long as you're honest about the fact that it's going to be a bit schlocky in a B movie, we'll go and watch it. But I do feel that there's a bit too much gravitas sometimes and misunderstanding of why franchises are remembered, and approaching franchises like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like Halloween, like The Exorcist, in the same way that something like the MCU or Star Wars is approached of there's this person, there's this person, there's this person, and it's like, while that works for some horror franchises, because it obviously works for Scream, but that's because it's been part of the gimmick with, who's Ghostface and stuff like that. I don't think it works for others.
They had the writing with Scream and all, fucking, that they barely had fuck all, original characters in the new one, because, they'd introduced us to characters that we cared about in the second to last one.
Like, don't get me wrong, The Exorcist could be. I'm actually looking forward to it, so I'm not, trashing it as a movie at all. I just want to clarify that. It is one that I'm looking forward to. But yeah, when I've been reading about it, the pandering to the kind of fan crowd or fans of the original stuff hasn't been what excited me at all. It's all the other stuff.
There's not really Exorcist stands like that, is there?
No, it's like one of those people go, "Oh, I love The Exorcist," and it's like, well, yeah, it's The Exorcist. Of course, if you don't outright hate The Exorcist and think it's Satan, you probably enjoyed it, because it's like you said, it wrote the blueprint for possession movies. If you've seen The Exorcist, you don't need to watch another one. But everyone should watch one possession movie because it's a fascinating story. It's a fascinating idea, and it did do it so well. I mean, this is the other thing. It made the blueprint, but very few films have managed to top it, I'd say. They've put their spins on it, but not actually be as scary. I'm just trying to think of some that I think have actually been come close. The Exorcism of Emily Rose is one that I remember being quite this one's not bad. I mean, but I don't think that's the highest rated.
Found footage one, was it The Last Exorcism?
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, that
Where
yes.
was a guy who's like fucking I've been doing this exorcist shit, but I'm actually like a magician. I know all these cool things, and like this is what I do, and I'm gonna debunk this shit. Like that, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a great one.
Found footage movies in general, I enjoy, to be honest. Like anything found footage. I watched slightly different from like possession stuff, but I watched the Poughkeepsie tapes the other day.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, like that man was so ahead of its time.
Yeah,
so ahead of its time, because you watch it now and it's like this could just be any Netflix true crime documentary. It could just be any Netflix true crime, and it was made in like the noughties. There needs to be more found footage in general. I think that should be like the thing we make happen.
Yeah,
over the next decade.
It's something that you can fucking like do great with fucking if you've got a great story. I've watched loads of shit found footage, but I think like a lot of people who didn't really know how to go about making things, it's just the easiest thing to make.
It really is, isn't it?
I think with found footage, fucking you live and die on your central performances. You got to be with the characters.
You need good method actors, and you need it to, be right down to the micro expressions. I mean, because that's what made Blair Witch so good. So as much as there's been so many scenes parodying the snot coming out of her nose, the first time you see it, it's like, oh shit, she's really scared. Like she's really scared, because you can't fake snot coming out your nose. Like as far as I'm aware. I tell you what,
it was one of those because it kind of like fucked her career, because like there was a lot of like myth making around Blair Witch. I mean, like first of all, it was like they had all the like the fake website and all that, and that was really cool. That was like the first kind of like sort of viral marketing kind of thing going on. But it was also like oh, the reason this is so good is because the people in it thought it was real. We were shaking it and fucking. Your woman out of it. She was going for gigs, like auditions and stuff ages ago. Oh yeah, I was in the Blair Witch, and they were like, oh yeah, but can you act like if what should we call it? There isn't people like fucking like waving sticks outside. She's like, no, I didn't think it was real. I am good at acting. Like fucking, I knew what I was fucking doing. I knew that the people outside the tent were the people I was having me sandwiches with 2 hours ago. That was me acting and being good at it.
Can you imagine if they actually had
that she was just being genuinely terrified?
There would have been absolute uproar. Can you imagine if someone actually had been like, yeah, basically, we went into the woods with a bunch of people and didn't tell them we were going to do it, and we fucking traumatized them, and this woman by the end thought that all her mates had been killed and stuff like that, and we just made a movie of it. There would have been even at the time there would have been outrage, but it's like,
that's some cannibal Holocaust shit, isn't it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, speaking of found footage though, and sequels and franchises and stuff, that I'm surprised and would love to see like kind of some reinventions of established franchises, but using found footage as like a thing. So for example, man, like if you wanted to make the idea of Freddy Krueger scary again, genuinely, you could do a Nightmare on Elm Street without Freddy Krueger in it, and do it as found footage, oh yeah, this thing's been happening in this town to teenagers when they're asleep, and so we're going to document it, and literally just do it like a possession movie, found footage, but just with the cuts appearing on them and stuff like that, and kids drawing and you could do something really creepy. A found footage like movie at Camp Crystal Lake with Jason killing the kids one by one would work on so many levels, and it would be a great way to kind of be like, this is the fresh spin on it that we're doing now. I think that's something that's going to come in with the fucking it's going to be the new generation, innit? I think one of the best films of this year, and it's a possession film, Talk to Me. I've not seen it yet, but I've heard such good things.
It's incredible. I mean, obviously it came out on A24, but it's A24 picked it up. The guys who made it are YouTubers.
Well, have you? That one's. Is it Talk to Me that's got the secret prequel that they filmed? Yeah, because I wrote about the prequel, the one, because that's all going to be found footage, isn't it? Like, am I right in thinking the prequel that they made is like all mobiles and all like shot on mobile and stuff like that? Because they're also doing
like it's kind of like you sort of come in like right at the end of it, and that's the intro to their film. You know, that whole idea of like you write a story and then you just delete the first bit. But and the thing is, like, because it's a lot to do with how like these like young Australian kids, it's like how they engage in social media. Because it's like the whole film sort of like about like you know, they're fucking around doing this thing where you can get temporarily possessed, and if you do it for too long, it's going to be fuckeries and all this kind of shit. But like that's how the kids are finding out about it, is because they like doing TikToks of each other. Fucking
thing is as well, because they're Australian teens, that's totally believable. Because have you met any Australian, you know, not have you met any Australian teenagers online? That sounds like the most sus shit. Have you met any Australian teenagers? But the amount of like, I watch a lot of shit posting compilations on YouTube, right, man? I fucking love them, just like mean screen grabs and stuff. And Australian social media and Australians on social media are absolutely bonkers, especially the shit that Australian kids do on TikTok compared to British kids is phenomenal. They are crazy. So that is like 100% believable. But they'd be like, "Oh, all right, mate, the hand possesses you. Let's give it a fucking go." You know?
That's pretty much the setup of it, and like they managed to do a possession film where I'm totally in for, because it's like, yep, I 100% believe that these kids are real and they're doing this. That's exactly what these kids would do. This spirit's a cunt.
Oh, look at that stupid cunt. His head's spinning around. But I mean, this is also kind of how you know that, like, or why it's actually quite easy to be like a skeptic about real cases of the paranormal and stuff like that in the age of social media. Because if there was like cursed artifacts like that, you know, there will be viral videos of some kid doing something stupid with it, man. Like, and I'm ready for the time that I will finally see evidence that I'm like, that is some real weird shit. It's been proven. Reality is a bit more exciting than we thought. But
you ever heard of a film called Next Exit?
No.
It was my favourite film of last year, and it never got a fucking like big release or nothing. It didn't come out in the cinemas in the UK. Like, I saw it at Fright Fest, and it's got your man Rahul Kohli in. You know,
okay. What's it? Is it on to stream?
It's like literally a month ago. It's on Now TV and Sky Cinema.
Okay, cool. I'll give that a watch then, man. Like,
that was my favourite film of last year. Like fucking it's like the setup of it is like, it opens on like a fucking like a news story of like, this is it. This is the definite proof that ghosts do exist as a thing.
All right. And so, like, is it horror or like?
Like, I'm not spoiling it for you because this is the literal setup. It's like what you call it? This like dead scientist is like shown playing a game with his daughter. And so, like, the obvious thing is like, okay, we know ghosts can come back and talk to their loved ones. So the thing we got to do is we've got to figure out, how do we do that? How do we do it so everyone can do it?
On demand.
Yeah. So, like, you never have to lose your loved ones. But to do that, you've got to have tests. To do tests, you've got to have volunteers. And so that means that some people have got to die. So, and like, the story is, it's like the fucking road trip of these two people who volunteered on the East Coast, and they've got to get to California, to this place where they're going to be in this test. And it's just about the whole journey. It's basically a road trip movie.
Oh, that sounds weird. It sounds a bit like a movie that I watched years ago, and it might even be going on 10 years now. It had Jason Segel in it, I think. It was about this guy proved, like, definitively on the news that, like, yeah, there's an afterlife, and we prove there's an afterlife. And so then everyone starts, like, F4ing from life, let's say. You know, because they're like, oh, well, there's an afterlife. I don't need to bother with this anymore. Like, in the opening scene, the guy's, like, explaining it, and one of the cameramen just goes, thank you, you've opened my eyes. And then, like, you know what I mean? It's like, fuck me. Yeah, sounds like a kind of similar sort of thing. I love movies that explore the afterlife in general, like that, man. That like get really
That's the
weird.
thing. Like this is about like the sort of like run up to the afterlife. Because like as they're driving, they're bumping into different people who've got different fucking views on it. Like, you know, maybe they got some pre-existing religious views. Like, and like that. So we know post-COVID is like fucking like just it's on the news. Like people aren't really going to be fucking with it.
Yeah, COVID that did change like the whole perspective of that, man. Like, and I think that's definitely gonna change the way that movies are approached. Because I've watched movies since COVID, like zombie movies and stuff like that, and some of the public reactions, you like, this doesn't actually seem that believable now because everyone's just complying. Like everyone's just like, oh, it says on the news do this, so we're gonna do this. Like and there was one that I was watching. I forget what it even was, but there was one that I was watching the other day that was really bad for it because like they're like they've been told to stay in their house, and there was like tentacles wrapping around the house or something like that. It was a British movie, really fucking weird. And the main character, the grizzly granddad character, was like, "Oh, it's all made up. It's all a load of rubbish." And the other character was like, "Oh, shut up, granddad." And that was the end of that. Whereas in real life, he'd have been like, "It's a load of rubbish," and everyone would be like, "Yeah, you're right. Let's go outside anyway." So we've been through this before. We know,
you fucking mad one. Hey, I gotta hit you up with another fucking like, because we're gonna wrap it up. This was just what we call it, sort of a random sort of catch-up episode because I fucking felt like it, and like been playing these short horror games, and it reminded me of what you do and why it's so great. So I figured I'd give you a holler. And like I fancied a chat about fucking horror, man.
Yeah. Always good to talk about horror. Always good, especially on Saw Week and with Halloween coming up next month. It's a good year for horror as well, I must admit. It's a good time for horror. For horror. There's been lots of great movies. It's a good year for it, especially.
Fucking a big recommendation. I don't know when it's going to drop, but I saw it at Fright Fest, which is another one on a similar kind of almost possession thing. Is like It Lives Inside.
Yeah, I've heard about this. Like, not much about it, but that's another one that's been recommended to me and is on my list.
Yeah, that's very good. Like, because I feel like it does well what the Boogeyman didn't. Like, what should we call it? Because a lot more stuff like the main character, she's what should we call it? Like, parents are Indian, she's Indian. Like living in America, and she's struggling a bit with her identity and all this kind of stuff. And like, it's quite interesting because, like, obviously, like, there's a whole thing of being othered and like being the only, like, Indian in your class. But it's like they're not doing it like where it's like the bullies pointing and calling her names. It's like people going, "Oh wow, can I take a photo of you wearing that? It's so cool," and all that kind of thing, and that kind of othering and like the evil from this, like, sort of comes from what should we call it, sort of Indian like mythology.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll have to give that a look in then, man.
Yeah. And another fun one is Dr. Jekyll. With I believe it's Susie Eddie Izzard or Eddie Susie Izzard. But listed as Eddie Izzard in the credits because it was made like a bit ago. And it's going to be the first release from the relaunch of Hammer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. How does it hold up? Well, have you not seen it yet? I'm a bit behind. So, like...
It was really good. Like, it was it's set in the modern day, but it's like set in a manor house, like, and it's this lad who's got a bit of fuckeries going on, and he's got to like help out this person called Nina Jekyll, who may or may not have had some famous ancestors.
Okay.
And it's a lot of fun, like, and flipping Susie Eddie Izzard kills it, like, fucking brilliant. It's just vibes. If you used to watch like flipping like Eddie Izzard fucking like stand up in the
Oh
fucking
yeah, that's what I was literally about to say, man. They're brilliant in anything I see them in. So even small things like what was
Shadow of the
that?
Vampire.
Oh my! I was not even aware that anyone else was even aware that movie existed.
Oh mate, I love that movie.
That's another one I watched on VHS that I had because it was long. One of my parents must have given it or something from somewhere because it was just laying around the house, and I was like, oh, I like vampires. I like Eddie Izzard. I'll pop this in. That was great. But the one is it the Mystery Men? He had a small part in that. So they had a small part in that. She had a. See, this is the problem because it's old movies with crediting and it's proper thrown me because it's not Eddie Izzard, but it's credited as Eddie Izzard. But as the disco guy in Mystery Men, and it's like disco never dies, and just the way that one line again has just stuck with me for years. That one small moment, but the stand up with the Eddie Izzard stand up stuff, perfect. Like absolutely perfect as far as stand-up goes. The action transvestite bit that he did, where he was like explaining, like, oh yes, just because I dress up in women's clothing doesn't mean that I don't like running around. It's like action transvestite.
Running, jumping, climbing trees,
putting on makeup when you're up there. It's absolutely brilliant. Obviously, you'll need a tray bit as well with Darth Vader on the Death Star. That's obviously become classic. But yeah. Looking at the time, I think I might actually have to go, oddly enough.
Well, we're going to sign off here. 200% Nightmare Fuel, that is available. Where is it available?
It's available on Amazon Prime from Velox Books on Amazon Prime, on Amazon, and on Kindle. And it can be Prime delivered, but it's got nothing to do with the Prime Video channel. Just the book, just stuff. But yeah, 200% Nightmare Fuel by Tom Russell. The cover's like blue with like faces on it with red eyes and stuff, so you'll know when you found it. And that's what you need to know about that.
Sick. Well, I've been Kinnell. This has been the KSC podcast. Peace.